Was that race actually good? I don't know. I think if I was to rate it out of 10, 5.5. 5.5 would be my score. Hello and welcome to my race review for the Dutch Grand Prix, the Grand Prix of Orange, the Grand Prix that Max Verstappen dominated and took his first home Grand Prix victory. And yes, like I said in that brief little intro, it wasn't the world's most exciting Grand Prix, but I have some varying little notes on my little phone, and we're going to go through the race and just sort of discuss it, along with the Audience Prediction Championship as well. We are going to review that to see who is predicted the best, as well as just give a brief overview of the current standings in the World Championship at the minute. And on screen is the Drivers' Championship for 2021, with Max Verstappen retaking the championship lead by just 3 points over Lewis Hamilton, with Valtteri Bottas moving up to P3, finally taking that spot from Lando Norris by just 9 points. As Sergio Perez also closes in on Lando Norris as well, with Leclerc back ahead of Sainz by just 2.5 points. These stupid decimals are annoying. Bad Spa. Gasly is still up there ahead of Ricciardo, with the two Alpines just 2 points apart. Then quickly moving on into the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes do extend their lead at the top, with 2 drivers finishing on the podium and Max Verstappen taking the victory. Their gap to Red Bull is now 12 points, with Ferrari now 12 ahead of a struggling McLaren at Zandvoort. They really didn't have a good Grand Prix. Alpine are still P5, AlphaTauri P6, then Aston Martin a low P7, and then Williams P8, Alfa Romeo P9, and Haas P10. And with the World Championships all concluded, we'll now take a look at the Audience Prediction Championships, my video series that gets released on the Thursday before each of the Grand Prix, where you guys, the audience, can predict what could possibly happen in this weekend's Grand Prix, and the results of that are on screen now. So congratulations to Danielle B and Elian for scoring 20 out of 25 points for this weekend, with current championship leader Evan Darcy on 19 as well. Hal is joint on 17 with Mattia Binotto. Not sure whether that is the legitimate real-life Mattia Binotto, but I will maintain that it is. Then myself is on 13, joint with David Knopf, and then also Joshua as well. And totaling up all of these scores for the season so far, for the 13 rounds that we have had, we end up with an overall leaderboard that looks a little bit like this. Evan Darcy maintains their lead at the top, now extending it to 13 points over Joe Bisho, with Danielle B being 10 points behind Joe also, and Arturo Salazar in P4. We then have a couple other people joining the 100-point club. We have Carrie Slaughter, Gemma Gibson, Matej, and also Mattia Binotto as well, with a couple of people close behind. Divot Rayhan, Minion023, and also Leroy. With the second half of leaderboard number 1 looking a little bit like this. That animation was supposed to be a little bit more smooth than a junky chunk. I don't know what that was supposed to be. A clunky junk is what I was supposed to say. But we have people like Het, AB Baby, VimZ25, F1 Kerala, Sidhant as well. And then of course we do have a second leaderboard as well, which looks a little bit like this, where there are a couple entrants who have only been here once or twice throughout this season. With the second half of the leaderboard, again, we're going to have a bit of a clunky junk animation. It's supposed to be nice and smooth. I'm not sure what's up with that. But we have a couple of people on 8s and also 7s. Now, to counteract the fact that not every single person who has entered into this series has made their submissions into every single round, like myself and current championship leader Evan Darcy, I have taken everybody's average score for the rounds that they have entered. So someone that has entered 3 for the past 3 races can compete with the likes of myself, who has competed across all of the races. And that leaderboard looks a little bit like this. We have Schlank with an average score of 16 out of 25 for the rounds that they have entered, with Alex Santiago in P2, and then you find myself all the way down in the second half of leaderboard number 1 on 10.8. God, I am atrocious. So if you see yourself in the top half of this leaderboard, you know you are doing exceptionally well. With the second half of leaderboard number 1, that's what the animation is supposed to do, which looks a little bit like this. Then, of course, we do have the second leaderboard as well, which looks something like this, where we find people in the regions of 8s, 8.5 for Scott Hilland, 8.4 for Alan Piera as well, 8.3 for Archie, and then we scroll down to the second half of the second leaderboard, where we end up with the people in the lower region of the points. And we do currently have over 100 unique individual entries to this series so far, and that is absolutely awesome. Thank you guys so much for all of the entries, and make sure to check out the video that does get dropped on the Thursday before each of the Grand Prix to get involved in this prediction championship. But with all of that out of the way, let me go through my phone's little notes that I made during the Channel 4 highlights, which admittedly went on a little bit longer than I was expecting. It's currently 8:30 in the evening at the moment. It didn't start, or the race didn't start till just gone 7. I was expecting it to be around 6 o'clock, but well, it doesn't matter. So, first up, we have the Alpines in the early laps. Stellar racing with a wee bit of contact. Just a wee little bit of contact. They were absolutely incredible. Throughout that whole Grand Prix, Alonso especially was really, really good. Ocon did have the better of him in qualifying, but not so much in the race. Alonso was having so much fun, and that last overtake on Sainz was spectacular. He is definitely one of my drivers of the day, which we will get onto in just a little moment's time, but definitely the two Alpines really, really strong, especially after Spa with the whole incident of the half points, which we spoke about last week in the review. They weren't too happy that the points were awarded, so to claw back some of these points, to have a double points finish as well as both cars starting inside the top 10, that was exceptional from the two Alpines. Then next up, we've got Giovinazzi was so lucky not to be in a big accident with said Alpines at the start. Yes, he was. Italian Jesus, P7 in Saturday. That was absolutely mega, and so close to being involved in a first lap incident with the Alpines. It was all such touch and go racing. So narrow the track. It is Monaco that doesn't have the barriers. Where's the track that we say that? Hungary, I think, is the track that we say that for. But Zandvoort was definitely like Monte Carlo. So narrow, twisty, turning, undulations, like they said at Portimao last year. It was spectacular to watch. Cars taking different lines through each of the corners and being able to take those different lines. And one driver not being able to defend. That's what we want to see. That's how tracks should be built. But yes, Giovinazzi was almost caught up in a massive accident. There wasn't even many yellow flags. No safety cars, no red flags. I think we used up all of the red flags in the first portion of this weekend throughout practice and the bajillion that we had in qualifying. But sadly for Giovinazzi, he did end up outside of the points, and well outside of the points. I think it was P15 or P16, unfortunately, which is a little bit of a shame considering his high starting position. He just sort of fell backwards and tumbled out of that order. Then next up, we've got Gasly is doing exceptionally well. He ran P4 for so long during that race, holding off Leclerc in arguably the faster Ferrari. That AlphaTauri really did work. And an interesting stat that I saw on Twitter as well is that Gasly has had, I think, 9 or 10 top 6 starts this season. He's been in Q3 for every single race bar 2, and for the top 6 starts, he has had 3 more than Sergio Perez. Wow, that's just ridiculous. I genuinely didn't think that until I had to go through and check, and it is crazy that Sergio Perez has less top 6 starts this year than Pierre Gasly. I think that just shows the kind of season that Gasly is having, and in that AlphaTauri he is really shining. To be able to put it in P4 in qualifying above the Ferraris and above the McLarens and the Alpines, that is exceptional. And then for the whole race to be able to hold them off, again, stellar. Then I've got Ferraris were extremely strong. However, massive gulf between Leclerc and Sainz. Now there was a 25-30 second gap. I'll look into it a little bit more in the data analysis video, which will probably drop on Wednesday this week. But there was a big gap between the two of them. They were exceptional. They were very good and clawed a lot of points over McLaren and actually overhauled them in this race. But there was a big pace disparity. Sainz didn't really seem like he had the edge at any point over Leclerc. And then to lose out that position to Fernando Alonso right in the dying stages of the race, that's going to hurt just a little bit. But other than that, it was a very strong race from Ferrari. But we do go to Italy, to Monza next, which is a completely different track. Ferrari's home track, but I'm not entirely sure how well they're going to perform. Disappointing for Aston Martin. Disappointing for Aston Martin. I've written it twice. Yes, it was an extremely disappointing race for Aston Martin. Didn't get through to Q3, which doesn't happen often this year. And then the race I don't know what happened. Lance Stroll was struggling to get past George Russell. We know that Russell has had a massive injection into his career, which is probably due to the contract talks that are happening at this current moment in time. And then Sebastian Vettel was down in P16 for a lot of the race. Hey, I don't know what was going on there. I know we did have a small little incident. The Spinella memes were going off on Twitter when I got back from work. I think he sort of went wide or almost half spun coming into turn 3, where Bottas then had to take some sort of avoiding action. Yeah, just a very uncomfortable weekend for Aston Martin, which was very, very unfortunate. Then next up, we've got Merc has tried the undercut, but a slow stop for Hamilton. It was Mercedes' strategy to sort of play with Red Bull. They had 2 cars up there against 1 Red Bull, but Max was just so supreme. And unfortunately, the undercut with that slow stop, I think it was a 3.5, 3.6 second stop for Hamilton. I didn't actually write it down. But the slow stop did hamper him a little bit. Then going on to the second stop as well, onto the new set of mediums, as Red Bull didn't have a new set of mediums, so it was wise for Mercedes to do that. It just didn't work. It felt like they always pulled the trigger a little bit too early, but I feel it's incredibly easy to say that in hindsight. As Hamilton was saying it all on the radio, he was dumped into traffic on his second stop. It felt like whatever they did didn't work. So I don't know whether they just made mistakes or whether that was always going to happen. Not sure. They did try it with Valtteri Bottas to keep him out, as I believe, if I actually quickly look, that was my second point. Bottas was just Hamilton's pet this entire race. And that was true. Bottas really was the team player. Team player, we'll get onto that point at the end in just a couple moments' time. But yeah, the whole point of Bottas staying longer on the softs, I think he went like 32 laps on the softs, he had nothing to fight off Verstappen with, so it didn't really hold Verstappen up too much. It allowed Hamilton to close the gap, but just not enough for Hamilton to actually start attacking Verstappen whilst Bottas is still in front, as Bottas's tyres were just gone. He had no traction out of any of the important traction zones onto the main straight, and Verstappen was easily able to breeze past, and Hamilton was caught up a little bit in turn 1 before making the overtake before turn 3. Yeah, Bottas was a little bit of a team player in that respect, but didn't quite do enough. And then at the very end of the race, when he pitted due to the precautionary vibration pit stop, believe that if you will, he then goes for fastest lap, is then told by James to abort the fastest lap, and he doesn't. He did slow a little bit in the microsectors, as I heard on the Sky commentary and also on the Channel 4 commentary, that he did slow in the mini sectors, but not enough. He still beat the fastest lap, which was held by Lewis at the time by 0.8, causing Hamilton to come back into the pits and then Verstappen to win by 25, 26 seconds or something like that. Hamilton did claim it back in the end to only lose out to just 4 points, 5.6 points to Max Verstappen in the championship. And that was about it. Apart from my driver of the day discussion, I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 drivers up for the driver of the day consideration. Number 1, Sergio Perez. Lots of overtakes, but on much slower cars and his own fault. Yes, Sergio Perez did put in lots of decent overtakes. They were very, very nice to watch, considering that was pretty much the only action that we got for this Grand Prix, but they were his own doing due to starting P16. He would have done some overtakes if he hadn't have taken the new engines and started from the pit lane. Then equally, he locked up massively going into fighting Mazepin, whereas Mazepin was being a little bit of a spanner brain, but that's Mazepin. He locked up massively, had to pit again. So the overtakes were all his own. They were the result of his own faults, really, throughout qualifying and then poor decisions in the race. But that does put him up for driver of the day because it was such a spectacle to watch, and the only spectacle to watch for that race. And driver number 2 is Alonso. Cracking teammate battle in the opening laps with Ocon, and then also good racing on Sainz. Alonso is just showing everybody how to race properly, how to race cleanly, and like a 2-time champion with a bajillion races worth of experience, exactly like we saw in Hungary against Lewis Hamilton. And I think Alonso is in for a good shout of getting my driver of the day. Next up, Gasly. held off Leclerc for the whole race and was definitely the fastest outside of the top 3. Ultimately, he was lapped. Everybody bar the top 3 was lapped this Grand Prix, which just goes to show the absolute pace domination of the top 3, which hopefully next year is going to fix. But Gasly is up there for me due to just that car not being as good as the Ferraris and the McLarens, yet he put it there to beat the Ferraris, the McLarens, the Alpines. Very good stuff. Then P4, or driver number 4, Verstappen. Didn't do anything wrong at all. I think there was one little lock-up, and that was about it, with like 3 laps to go or something like that. Just one small little under rotation into turn 12. And that's it. They're my 4 options for driver of the day. And looking at my notes, I would have to go for Alonso personally. That would be my choice for driver of the day. And there we go, that is going to round up my review for the Dutch Grand Prix. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have disagreed with anything that I've said or would like to add anything about the race. What were your thoughts as well? And let me know if you agree with my driver of the day being Fernando Alonso. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.